Welcome to another Dolphin Communication Deep Dive webinar. Thanks to those in various time zones joining us live today. We're going to talk about behaviors and risks related to close interactions between humans and free-ranging dolphins. We are honored to have Pamela Carzon with us today. She is a PhD student in Paris and is co-founder of Dauphins de Rangiroa. I was trying to practice, and then I get nervous and I mess it all up. But thank you so much for your time. She's out in the Pacific now, so and very busy. We're very grateful for your time. For those of you who are joining live, just a reminder to use the chat function for your questions, and we will get to questions at the end of the talk. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Pamela.
So thank you, Kelly. I think I have to share my screen again. Or is it okay?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Partager. Okay, this is the screen, then the presentation. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. I apologize for my English because actually it's not my native language. I did my PhD in English, but I still have to think about my words and to speak slowly, try to think about what I'm saying. Today, we are going to talk about deleterious behaviors and risks related to close interactions between humans and free-ranging dolphins, as Kelly told us. But before, I will briefly introduce myself. I'm Pamela Carzon with a French accent. I'm actually 42. I'm an old PhD student at EPHE-PSL University, which is located in Paris. But I'm actually not living in Paris. I'm living in French Polynesia in the Pacific Ocean. I will show you on the map later because I will use many examples taken from Rangiroa to illustrate this presentation. My PhD supervisors, are Fabienne Delfour and Eric Lua. And I'm also managing a local NGO named Dauphins de Rangiroa. Rangiroa Dolphins would be the English translation. So first of all, I will take some time to present you a background of all this. The NGO is, like many NGOs, dedicated to scientific research, citizen science, conservation, and public outreach. We are living and working in the middle of the tropical Pacific Ocean, right here in French Polynesia, which is a huge territory of 5 million square kilometers, composed of 5 archipelagos, including the Tuamotu Islands. Rangiroa is an atoll. It's the largest atoll of French Polynesia. And I'm working and living there. You can see on this map, Rangiroa Atoll, on the north side of the atoll, there are 2 channels connecting the ocean to the lagoon. One of these channels is called Tiputa Channel or Hiria Channel in Tahitian. And this is the place where we work on bottlenose dolphins. I show you quickly an aerial view of the place with Hiria Channel here. The ocean side on the upper part of the picture, the lagoon side here, and we are located just here. So we are lucky workers. We are just next to our community, dolphin community. We don't need to travel a lot to be able to watch and collect dolphin data. We are working here on a specific dolphin species, the common bottlenose dolphin. The scientific name is Tuamotu Islands. I guess you already know the species. It's very famous. Here in French Polynesia, there are common bottlenose dolphins in the 5 archipelagos, but Rangiroa is the best place to watch them. They can reach up to 3.2 meters in length and weigh up to 450 kilos. So they are huge animals. What about the PhD? I did it in partial time. I needed 6 years to complete it. Actually, it's not totally completed. I'm going to present it next June in France, mainland France, in Perpignan. And I focused on the dolphins, these common bottlenose dolphins behaviors in the context of their interactions with scuba diving tourism. Rangiroa is actually a very famous place for scuba divers. And these dolphins had been subject to scuba diving activities from the mid-80s, mid-90s. Within my PhD, I actually focused on 3 dimensions of these interactions. The risks related to these close interactions between dolphins and divers, the dolphins' tolerance to scuba diving tourism, and temperament traits of the dolphins that can be identified in the context of their interactions with scuba divers. Today, I will introduce you to the first part of this PhD, which talks about these deleterious behaviors and risks related in general, I mean worldwide, to close interactions between humans and free-ranking dolphins. It was the first work I did into the PhD. And this work, which was written in collaboration with my PhD supervisors and Kathleen Dudzinski, has been published in March 2023 in Biological Conservation. So I will try to synthesize a little bit this work, and I invite you, if you want more details about some parts of this work, to refer to the paper. What about our background? We are working on wildlife tourism in general. You all know, I guess, about wildlife tourism. Here, we restrict our definition to the non-consumptive use of wild animals in their natural habitats. Actually, wildlife tourism increased dramatically in recent years, with about 60% of the world population living in cities and many people who need to reconnect with nature. In 2017, it was estimated that 7% of world tourism related to wildlife, and that the number of participants to this type of tourist activities was between 79 and 440 million. It's actually a range, but it shows us the proportion of people participating to these activities. One dimension of wildlife tourism is marine wildlife tourism, and one dimension of marine wildlife tourism is whale watching tourism. Whale watching is the recreational viewing of cetaceans in the wild. We use the term whale in English, in French too, actually. The term whale watching is used in French, but it actually refers to all cetacean species. These activities boomed by the end of the 70s and mostly in the 90s. And in 2008, it was possible to watch almost all cetacean species in about 120 countries worldwide. These activities may take the form of shore-based, boat-based, air-based, and in-water whale and dolphin watching. And we all know that whales and dolphins are very attractive species for most people, above all in Western cultures. So this type of tourist exploded, boomed totally, and has created globally distributed hotbeds of highly lucrative tourism activities. Let's say 2 words about the dolphins, because they are the targets of our presentation. Wildlife tourism in general relies on iconic species. You may think about gorillas, for example, tigers. There are lots of iconic species in Western culture, mainly mammal species, actually. And dolphins are part of these iconic animals, but it's not been the case all our history long, except maybe in the ancient Greece. It's quite recent, actually, and it's quite Western. We will really focus on Western cultures because lots of researchers had worked on our Western visions of dolphins and showed that there exists strong social stereotypes about dolphins and their behaviors that are driven by media exposure, popular culture, focusing on positive myths, legends, symbiotic relationships between dolphins and humans, and also theme parks. We won't spend too much time on this part, but it's very interesting to dig into all the Western beliefs about dolphins. There is something ubiquitous too, it is a bottlenose dolphin smile, which makes these animals look like happy friends. And there are lots of anthropomorphism when thinking about dolphins in Western culture. I will tell you just after what we mean by anthropomorphism. And not only morphological features, but also behavioral features make these dolphins being thought of very friendly anthropophilic animals, actually, because some individual dolphins, they will, within their interactions with humans, display curiosity, opportunism, or habituation, which consolidates an impression of harmony, connectivity, and success in interspecific interactions. Anthropomorphism is the act of attributing human characteristics, intentions, motivations, and emotions to non-human animals or objects. I take my first example from Rangiroa, with on this small picture a diving instructor showing himself petting a wild female immature bottlenose dolphin, with a comment saying that when everything goes wrong, the animals can feel it. It's an example of anthropomorphism. I won't speak too long about anthropomorphism, but actually anthropomorphism may be positive or negative. It's not only good or only bad. If you want, I invite you to dig further into this topic too. This picture to show you, it's been taken here too. It's an adult male bottlenose dolphin, to show you that there are lots of misunderstandings of the dolphin's behaviors. And typically on this picture, we have an adult male bottlenose displaying what we call an S posture. And in this context, it was an agonistic signal, putting limits between the dolphin and the scuba divers around. And I used to show this picture to the people participating to the talks and ask them what they think about this dolphin's behavior. And the major part of people, they will think that the dolphin invites them to interact with him, to embrace him, or even to dance with him. So just to illustrate all the positive stereotypes we may have about dolphins, which can lead to many misunderstandings, and after risks, we will talk about this a little later. There is something else which is very trendy today, I say unfortunately, and related to all the social media phenomenon, what is called wildlife selfies. There were different campaigns against this these last few years. Wildlife selfies are photographs taken by people where they appear in the same image than wild animals, for example, a sloth on the picture or a koala. And actually, it illustrates the fact that animals are still viewed as commodities. Alors, I don't want to say that all people still view animals as commodities. There are also more empathetic visions of animals, about animal welfare, for example, but it's something very present in our societies, with market environmentalism fueling an anthropocentric and egocentric worldview, where animals are resources to be used by humans for either entertainment, self-esteem, or economic gain. Another example from Rangiroa, with a diving instructor showing himself in dolphin selfies with some comments. I actually erased, I think, the names and comments, but you can see from the images that it's probably something that helps him increasing his self-esteem. So now let's talk about the review itself, and I will need to give you some definitions to understand what we were working on. So what do we mean by close interactions? These are interactions occurring during wading, swimming, free-diving, scuba diving, and food provisioning activities that may be regular, that may be occasional, that may or may not involve physical contact between humans and dolphins. In this picture, for example, we have an example taken from Eastern Australia, where humpback dolphins are fed by people in a tourist context. And we also had to give definitions to explain what we meant by dolphins. Simply, we had a very large consideration of what dolphins were into the review, as we included all the odontocetes or toothed whales from the Delphinidae, Iniidae, and Monodontidae, families. The Delphinidae are illustrated on this picture by a beaked dolphin, for example, a bottlenose dolphin, a rounded-headed dolphin, a pilot whale on the bottom left. A representative of the Iniidae family is shown here on the bottom right. It's an Amazon River dolphin. And the Monodontidae family contains two species, the narwhal and the beluga. Actually, we considered all these animals as dolphins into the review. Then, what did we do? We categorized also the situations where close encounters were occurring. On one part, we considered what we called ongoing tourist and other recreational activities, which are up-to-date opportunities for regular or occasional close interactions between humans and purangling dolphins. You can see on the photos a female swimmer with spinner dolphins, for example, two people interacting very closely with an Amazon River dolphin. On the top right, someone giving a fish to a humpback dolphin. So all of these activities are part of what we call ongoing tourist and other recreational activities. We'll say ongoing activities to make it simple. And the other category was considering lone sociable dolphins. These are dolphins that are typically solitary, that may seek out human company and or reorient part of or all of their social behavior toward humans rather than specifics. Why did we consider both distinctively? Because usually human-dolphin interactions occurring with lone sociable dolphins are more intimate, and we'll see this later, will give rise to more violent, extreme relationships and deleterious behaviors and risks than those considered in ongoing activity. Okay, let's talk quickly about different situations, different strategies that are used willingly or not by people to ensure predictable wildlife viewing, focusing on dolphins. We were inspired by Knight, who explained, who developed three strategies. The first one being capturing and confining the animals, which is not the case in our review. The second one being habituating animals to humans. So there is here a description, a definition of habituation. I will just focus on the last part of this description. We consider habituation as being an adaptation to human presence in a way that humans are essentially ignored. And the third strategy considered by Knight is attraction. I added through conditioning because when you involve positive reinforcement to attract animals, it will drastically speed up the occurrence of close interactions. So this may partly explain why these close interactions may occur in the dolphin's natural settings. An example taken from Rangiroa, where a dive instructor is actively encouraging physical contact with a young male bottlenose dolphin. The hand is very important in this example. You will understand on the following video why. The dolphin will quickly make. I just have to precise that these behaviors are totally illegal. Huh? We will talk about this a little bit later too, just to illustrate what we said before. So the dolphin will make very easily a relationship between the hand and physical contacts, pleasant physical contacts with scuba divers. On this next video, we can see in Rangiroa an immature female dolphin. The diver on the front is not seeing the dolphin, he's saying hello to the camera. And the female dolphin, she's targeting the diver's hand, actually. And he's surprised because he did not notice that there was a dolphin behind him. Just to show that these dolphins looking for physical contacts with divers, they quickly made the relationship between the hands and physical contacts. It's not, nothing is easy, and when we are analyzing dolphins' behavior, it's not neither. There is obviously an influence of many parameters on these dolphins' responses to repeated human presence. And within my PhD, just one slide, I worked on the influence of temperament traits on the dolphins' boldness. I actually used the boldness-shyness axis. Just for you to know, here is a definition of what we mean by temperaments. Temperaments are behavioral and physiological differences between individuals of the same species. So I will illustrate this with the following video. You saw just before that some of the dolphins are attracted by the diver's hand and by the idea of sharing physical contact with scuba divers. It's not the case for all bold dolphins, actually, in Rangiroa. This is the example of a young immature female. She's actually intolerant to physical contact with divers, but she's still coming to divers. And she even, on this part of the video, you can see she even developed a kind of play behavior with these divers who are repetitively trying to touch her. Why did we decide to do a review? Oops, I can't see very well on the right side of my screen. So because at first close interactions are actively encouraged worldwide, they are booming and they're still booming everywhere. They are sorted by humans. They are being launched in various locations. And the thing is that in most locations, they are poorly or partially managed. And it's a big reason why there are deleterious behaviors occurring and an increasing of the risks related to these close interactions. Our goal was mainly to help promote animal welfare and conservation, human safety, and the viability of these activities in the near future. So how did we do that? I will make it simple. I did search on search engines on the internet. I searched for sources relating to this topic, and I selected 240 references, including 48.8% of peer-reviewed sources published from the 50s, sorry, and related to ongoing activities and lone sociable dolphins. I tried to open my search, doing it in English, Spanish, and French. I would have loved being able to do it in all languages, but unfortunately, I'm limited to these 3 ones. I then focused on close encounters, so involving the activities we talked about just before. And within these close encounters, I then selected all the dolphins and humans' deleterious behaviors that were documented and risks for both parties. So quickly, about the number of references, we can see on the upper part of the screen, the graph concerns ongoing activities, and on the bottom part, lone sociable dolphins. Sorry. These two stacked bar plots are showing us the number of peer-reviewed papers and other references related to our topic. We can see that there are some countries that are much more studied than others, where these close encounters are much more studied than in other countries. For ongoing activities, for example, we can see that Australia, the USA, and New Zealand are appearing first, with most of our sources actually coming from these destinations, from these locations. And for lone sociable dolphins, most of our sources are coming from the UK. It's more or less the same for peer-reviewed sources. We can see that many sources are actually not peer-reviewed because many were published as rare literature. So we had also to look for reports, workshops, and sometimes even go to tourism official websites to try to understand if close encounters were occurring in some of the destinations. From this information, we designed maps to try to synthesize the distribution of these activities worldwide. This one is for ongoing activities. Once more, you can't read very well the information on the maps. I invite you to refer to the review in biological conservation to see the information, the detailed information. The idea was to synthesize the distribution of locations, activities, and main dolphin genus involved in ongoing activities on this map. And we finally tallied 54 locations distributed in 32 countries where this type of interactions were occurring. 25 dolphin species identified in these interactions. And for 70.4% of locations, bottlenose dolphins were the main species identified. So bottlenose dolphins were the first dolphin species actually involved in close interactions with humans. The second species was the spinner dolphin, which represents 35.2% of the locations reviewed. We did exactly the same for lone sociable dolphins, except that in this case, obviously, most of these dolphins are not here anymore. They are not anymore alive, unfortunately. We showed the distribution, of location activities in the main dolphin genus, and here we identified 47 locations distributed in 26 countries, 12 dolphin species involved in close interactions as lone sociable dolphins. And we did not consider the number of locations or the proportion of locations, but the proportion of individuals in this case, with bottlenose dolphins representing 73.3% of all individual lone sociable dolphins identified. And here the second species was the beluga with 14.1% of individuals identified. So what did we mean by deleterious behavior? I'm sorry for this very impressive picture. It was more to illustrate the diverse, the human, hand into the dolphin's mouth than the dolphin's open mouth. To make it simple, we had to consider categories too for deleterious behaviors. And we gathered these behaviors in 5 main categories inspired from Summers and Spradley. At the end of the presentation, I will leave you the references if you want to see them. Okay, first, deleterious dolphins behaviors to humans. The 5 categories are the following ones: aggressive, submissive, sexual, intrusive, and abrupt dolphin behaviors directed to humans and or human activities. I left you examples for you to understand what we mean by these categories. And in the case of humans, we have all the same categories except the submissive category. Actually, no human submissive behavior was documented in our sources, which is a little weird, but we really remained in the information gathered in our references. Okay, don't read this, please. You will be able to read it maybe later on the recordings. This is a table that appears in the paper, in the review, which shows the details on dolphins and humans' deleterious behaviors recorded in our sources. They are listed per category: aggressive, submissive, sexual, intrusive, abrupt. On one part for ongoing activities, and on the other part for lone sociable dolphins. What we can see from this table is that lots of deleterious behaviors were recorded, dolphin deleterious behaviors were recorded in the specific case of lone sociable dolphins, much more than for the case of ongoing activities, and the same for human deleterious behaviors, much more for lone sociable dolphins than for ongoing activities. Some video illustration. I really hope that we could hear the sounds. Here you will hear, normally, if the sound is working, a female bottlenose dolphin buzzing at a scuba diver. Let's see if it's working. I hope it worked. And we see the dolphin like bending the head toward the diver's head. She's actually sending a buzz to the diver's head. So this is considered as a deleterious dolphin behavior toward the scuba diver, in this case, an aggressive behavior, in this case too. Except that here we have an adult male bottlenose dolphin. Clapping at the scuba diver's head. We just see the dolphin's head, but actually it was well filmed, huh? But actually under the dolphin's head, there is the instructor's head too. And when he shared the video with me, he was not feeling very well and told me that he was like really afraid, scared of this dolphin. He really didn't know what would happen. So the dolphin is stressed, actually. He's just clapping and kind of buzzing the scuba divers too. Another example from Rangiroa of dolphin gentle deleterious behavior towards scuba divers, which is a consequence of these dolphins' conditioning, high tolerance. It's not only conditioning, but high tolerance to scuba divers, and the fact that scuba divers encouraged the dolphin to share physical contacts with them and are still encouraging. This dolphin is gently pushing, is coming very close to scuba divers and pushing the diver's fin to make them understand that he is looking for some sort of physical contact with them. This individual is an immature male. Irianu is his name. Okay, I will show you two other degrees of dolphin pushiness towards scuba divers to illustrate dolphin deleterious behaviors toward humans. In this case, we have an immature female dolphin. She's looking for physical contact with a scuba diver. He didn't see her actually at first, realized then that there is a dolphin behind him. He's surprised. He tries to protect himself with his arm, and she's really focused on him. She doesn't care about all the other divers around. And so it's hopefully he is a diving instructor, so he's pretty comfortable underwater, but with a new non-experienced diver, it may be really impressive to have such a big animal behaving like this towards you. And the last video to illustrate dolphin pushiness is from this bottlenose dolphin calf. Andy is his name. He's also looking for physical contact with the scuba divers. These behaviors are not aggressive at all. He's going to one of the divers and putting his rostrum between the diver's head and the flexible from the main regulator. And you'll see that finally we pull the regulator out. Hopefully the instructor is coming to help the diver. This dolphin is well known now on the Chiputa Channel area to behave like this with scuba divers. We don't know if he's just looking for physical contact or maybe it's a kind of play for him, but it may be really impressive, above all for non-experienced divers. Here is an example from a lone sociable dolphin, not from Rangiroa. This one is from the Cayman Islands in the Caribbean. You may already know this video. It's pretty famous on the social media. Stinky the dolphin. He's looking for abruptly, roughly, from some sort of sexual interaction with the scuba divers. If you think that there are already inherent risks related to scuba diving activities, you may have an idea of how this type of dolphin behavior toward divers may escalate into very, very risky situations. Okay, now some examples of humans' deleterious behaviors toward dolphins, with the most commonly seen on the Chiputa Channel area, the diver intrusive behavior toward dolphins. The divers will actively approach the dolphins, try to touch them, and the mostly seen deleterious submissive response seen from the dolphins on the area 2, avoidance response. Here too, with another individual, this female dolphin is actually more tolerant than the one we saw just before, but she's still avoiding very intrusive approaches by scuba divers. Here we have the famous dolphin selfie. These behaviors, unfortunately, can be seen pretty regularly on the area 2. And here, to finish with human deleterious behaviors. Oops, it's not working. I don't know why. Okay, sorry. We have a scuba diver grabbing a young dolphin, which is totally crazy. A female diver grabbing the dolphin's flipper, then peduncle, then flukes. If you remember well, the dolphin's mother is actually very tolerant, even if we can say that the calf doesn't feel comfortable in this situation. But imagine that these activities are taking place all year long, all month long, every day in Rangiroa, so that the dolphins have to suffer from a lot of intrusive divers behaviors, despite of the illegality of these activities. So what did we do to finish with deleterious behaviors? We designed a heat map to try to compare the proportional cases where dolphins and humans' deleterious behaviors were documented. 1 in ongoing activities, 2 for lone sociable dolphins. Ongoing activities appear at the top, so lone sociable dolphins at the bottom. And we can see from this heat map that human intrusive behaviors are the behaviors mostly recorded in close encounters. followed by, in the case of non-sociable dolphins, dolphin intrusive behaviors, and in the case of ongoing activities, dolphin submissive behaviors. So all this was actually illustrated by the previous videos. Now let's talk about the risks. What do we mean by risks? We inspired from Hohoff. Risks are short to long-term negative impacts on dolphins, humans, and or human activities resulting from close interactions between both species. And here we did the same that what we did for deleterious behaviors. We designed a heat map. I will try to make it simple. Don't try to read everything. First of all, actually, before designing the heat map, we reviewed and listed all the risks present in the literature, in our sources, for dolphins and for humans. We can see here that there are much more risks that were listed for dolphins than for humans. It does not correspond to reality, but it was what was found in the literature, actually, with 20 risks reviewed for dolphins, going from a loss of vigilance towards humans and human activities to dolphin mortality. Okay, and for humans, just 5 risks going from property damage to also mortality. It's interesting to focus a little bit on the heat map on this slide because we can see that the proportion of locations where risks were recorded for dolphins and humans are different in nature for ongoing activities and non-sociable dolphins, with risks recorded for non-sociable dolphins being generally more violent than those reported for ongoing activities that are more subtle in general. For example, the first risk for non-sociable dolphin is a loss of vigilance, okay? And after 20, dolphin mortality. Actually, the case of non-sociable dolphins is very is a concern because there are lots of these dolphins that finish badly because of the no limits interaction they have with people. They become nuisances, or they can be also victims of collateral threats like boat strikes, for example, or propeller injuries or other types of risks. We can see in the case of ongoing activities on the heat map that the risks are different and more related to the dolphin's behavior. It can be risky on the short to long term. For example, the number 2, an impairment of intraspecific social behavior. Number 6, impairment of resting, foraging behavior 2, and a change in habitat use are the risks mostly recorded in the case of ongoing activities. Let's take an example, a very famous example from Hawaii, the example of spinner dolphin watching there that had been worked a lot these last few years because new regulations were implemented because of these very close and repeated interactions. So here is an example of risks that are due to subtle dolphin responses to repeated human presence. In Hawaii, Tyne and al. Showed that spinner dolphins were exposed to human activities within 100 meters for 82.7% of the daytime, with a median duration of 10 minutes between exposure events. According to the authors, chronic levels of exposure to human activities could lead to rest deprivation, displacement from preferred resting habitats, and ultimately negative population level effects. It's difficult for us humans to see these consequences of repeated close interactions with humans, so that it's very important to monitor the dolphins communities or populations on the medium to long term to be able to point out demographic consequences of these tourist activities and other type of close interactions. I'm sorry for pictures. In the case of obvious dolphin responses, it's more like about lone sociable dolphins and also about habituated and conditioned dolphins. There are lots of very violent and obvious risks related to the encounters with these animals. Because these animals' loss of vigilance to humans and human activities will increase their vulnerability, to us through, for example, different examples of fishing gear entanglements, injury and vandalism from humans, boat collisions, propeller injuries, and mortality. The example on the top right is taken from Rangiroa once more. She's a female bottlenose dolphin, highly involved in close interactions with scuba diver. She's been injured by a propeller. She was lucky to survive, actually. We have other examples on the left part of the slide, with an extreme example on the bottom left of a dolphin that was found stranded. One of these dolphins involved in begging behaviors, in food provisioning activities in the Gulf Coast near Florida. That was killed actually by someone, we don't know who, but just to show that these dolphins' familiarity with humans make them much more vulnerable to negative behaviors from humans too. In the case of physical contacts between dolphins and humans, there is also a risk of pathogen transmission, which is also the case for feeding. And in the case of feeding in the Amazon River, in Brazil, it was shown that Amazon River dolphins fed by people were displaying increased intraspecific aggression. In Florida, for example, there were distinct papers written about this and reports that showed that dolphins food provisioned by people were ingesting inappropriate food, lots of different inappropriate food. In Australia, in Shark Bay, specifically, researchers studied that there was a decreased maternal care of young dolphins from mothers that were fed by people. And what was already also shown in the case of habituated and conditioned dolphin was an impairment of foraging behavior and a change in habitat use, above all for the dolphins that were fed or are fed by humans. Now the risks for humans. I'm sorry for this picture. It's a little bit dramatic, but it's not the purpose. I was looking for something to illustrate. We divided the risks into two categories, and we saw actually that many risks were due to inappropriate readings of the dolphins' behaviors and needs. We already talked at the beginning of the presentation of our beliefs about dolphins. And actually, these beliefs may make us very vulnerable to dolphins too, and lead to dolphin injuries and mortality. There are two famous examples, one from Hawaii. I will show you the video after. I think you already know it. And one from Brazil involving a lone sociable dolphin. He was harassed by people who tried to pull it on a beach. He tried to release himself, the dolphin, and he hit a man, which caused the man's death, actually. So it was not an aggressive behavior on part of the dolphin. It was just to try to release himself. Then we also considered indirect risks related to these interactions, such as swimming or scuba diving accidents, for example, shark injuries. There are two cases documented in the literature reviewed, one from Florida and one from French Polynesia, of shark injury related to close interactions with dolphins, and property damage. In French Polynesia, a few years ago, some snorkelers were into the water with pilot whales, and often in tropical waters, including in French Polynesia, there are what we call parata here, oceanic white-tip sharks, traveling with pilot whales, and unfortunately, one of the women was attacked seriously by Parata while she was interacting with the pilot whales. This is a famous video. I guess you know it. It was filmed in the 90s in Hawaii. It's a famous interaction between a female swimmer and a pilot whale, which is described in details by Shane and Al. So if you want, I will leave you the reference at the end of the presentation. Here we have this female swimmer. She's petting a big male short fin pilot whale, which is probably not used to interacting with humans. These animals may be really unpredictable. And it was the case on this video. I show you the video because the woman escaped. She was safe. Don't worry, it's very impressive. But it's actually very impressive too to see that the pilot whale grabs her into its mouth and pull her down at about 10 to 15 meters. She could escape, she could be saved by her colleagues from a boat after a paper was published about this case. And it's actually, yes, it's very impressive. And it shows us that these animals remain unpredictable. We can't manage, we can't control what's going on in their natural environments, even in captivity, actually. So in their natural environment, it's still more unpredictable for us as we are not in our own environments. An impressive example too from lone flexible female bottomless dolphins. Dusty in Ireland, she's been known by her unpredictable behaviors to swimmers. And here is an example. She begins playing activities, which is negative.
That's crazy.
And after they are still laughing. I think they did not understand.
Just get out of the water.
This dolphin, she was really focused on this woman, and she was not caring of the other swimmers. She had something with this woman. We don't know why, actually. We will never know why. But just to illustrate once more the unpredictability and aggressivity these animals may display. They remain wild animals, so we have to be humble and cautious in the water with them. To illustrate indirect risks related to close interactions, I selected one interaction from Rangiroa once more. It's regular to see that scuba divers, like open water certified, they go from 15 meters petting a dolphin. The dolphin will drop down to 40 or more than 40 meters, and they will descend with the dolphin without caring of their ear or anything. So you can imagine it's indirect, but you can imagine that it may be very dangerous for inexperienced divers to realize that they are at 40 or 50 meters with all the risks inherent to scuba diving activities. Then, to finish with the risks, I wanted to show a slide about pathogens that exist that can be transmitted between humans and dolphins too. I actually did not document any dolphin to human pathogen transmission in the literature reviewed, but there are examples from veterinary sciences with captive and free-ranking dolphins. And what I wanted to show here is that, for example, in Rangiroa, we have dolphins. They show apparent granulomatous skin disorders that looks like lobomycosis-like disease. And scuba divers sometimes were also seen touching these animals. Another photo just below, I just make a warning because it's a little uncomfortable to see this. These ones, the one from the man's arm was taken from a paper published in a veterinary science journal or tropical disease journal from a man who contracted lobomycosis after a contact with an infected dolphin in South America. So we can acquire distinct diseases, and these diseases, the example of lobomycosis, will develop slowly over time, and there is no treatment for humans, for dolphins, likewise, to cure these diseases. Okay, to conclude this presentation, I will try to share some management indications gathered in the literature too. These indications appear in the review published in Biological Conservation. So if you want more details, once more, I will invite you to refer to the review. The idea is to promote animal welfare, human safety, and the establishment of sustainable and ethical activities. It's a big job. Okay, let's try to sum it up. So, experts from many parts of the world who've been working on close interactions between dolphins and humans, and more generally wildlife and humans. They shared their experience. They shared very interesting recommendations, including, for example, the improvement of collaboration between all the stakeholders involved in close encounters, like tour operators, conservationists, government agencies, academic institutions, and local populations. Just briefly, here in Rangiroa, it's very difficult. We are an isolated and remote island located at 350 kilometers from the main island, Tahiti. And it's very difficult to collaborate with the different stakeholders locally because it's a small island and everyone and the scuba diving world is special too. Everyone knows what shall be done. So there are also conflicts between fishermen, divers, and everyone, actually. It's a pity. And it's also difficult to coordinate well with the authorities. So this recommendation is totally relevant for our case and for many other cases throughout the world. The people working on these topics also recommended to minimize human intervention in the cases of the presence of dolphins and activities involving close interaction, to discourage habituation, for example, conditioning, even any type of close interaction with humans. For some of them, there are different degrees of recommendations that were proposed. Lots of authors also advise, to adopt a precautionary principle when managing close interactions, to consider threats of significant adverse impacts before developing any activity, which is actually never done in reality. And it's a pity too. We often wait for bad situations to get too bad before doing something, rather than managing them proactively and preventatively. There are lots of authors that preconize to review the regulations. There are regulations existing in many parts of the world to manage, to supervise whale and dolphin human watching interactions. But there are lots of places, lots of locations where these regulations are not easily understood by people. So some authors advise the authorities to make them simpler, clearer, more concise. They are not adapted to local situations too, and they are not enforced by authorities. It's the case in every place, but in a lot of places, including French Polynesia. And many tour operators, guides, and other people, they know that there is no enforcement, though they will willingly ignore the rules and to keep the statu quo, not to change anything until the risks are increasing too much and there is to do something. Authors also advise to develop responsible communication to encourage, for example, realistic expectations during human-dolphin encounters, to discourage unrealistic communication, such as guaranteed swim with experiences, for example, the promotion of illegal activities, greenwashing operations, which is very developed here and elsewhere. Education is one dimension of the recommendations that is really advised by everyone, actually. Regulations and educations are the two dimensions mostly documented in the papers to try to improve, to manage the risk related to these interactions with, for example, the training of tour operators, with public outreach, with the presence of appropriately trained guides to supervise people on boats, underwater. Scientific monitoring too is important. It's important actually to do continuous or regular monitoring of this situation, of each situation, because each one is specific, and it's also important to evaluate the effectiveness of management strategies that were implemented and to give limits of acceptable change. An example here in Rangiroa, we already had some dolphins' death, a very tolerant, a very familiar dolphin's death. That could be one limit of acceptable change. Okay, this dolphin was regularly, daily involved in close interactions with scuba divers. Okay, at 5 years old, it disappeared. It died, actually. This one too, at 10 years old. So maybe now it's a limit. We should do something to limit these negative outcomes. Some also advise to focus on quality rather than quantity, developing, for example, genuine ecotourism, providing benefits to local communities. I leave you check. There are lots of works done also on ecotourism, wildlife tourism, and so on. And the last recommendation given in different papers, not all of them, but some of them, is the funding of conservation programs through, for example, the payment of an entrance fee or permit fee, which can be used to fund these conservation programs, because lots of programs that try to do monitoring actually lack funding, financial plata to continue to do continuous or regular monitoring. I'm sorry. So to conclude, I wanted to show you a last Rangiroa video of a passive dolphin sighting. We actually recommend here in Rangiroa to observe the dolphins passively, to try not to interrupt, not to be intrusive with the dolphins, not to modify too much their behaviors that can lead to deleterious outcomes. And here there is an example taken here of an immature female bottlenose dolphin with a scuba divers just going, sighting without trying to interrupt the animals in their behaviors. Okay, so this is the end of the presentation. I'm sorry once again for my English. Sometimes I was like a bit mixed in my head. I thank you all for your participation. And just the 3 last slides show you the references used in this presentation. So it goes quite quickly, but I guess after on the recording, you will have time to check them if you're interested in reading some of them. Thank you.
That was wonderful, and your English is excellent. You should be very, very pleased with your ability to present that in English. Thank you so much. Before we get to questions, I just wanted to remind people that if this is your first webinar that you're watching and you want to catch up on previous recordings, you can find them right at DCP's website, dolphincommunicationproject.org. Look under the Knowledge Hub and you'll find our webinars there. They're also on YouTube and Vimeo. And this was a deep dive. So longer, not shying away from technical concepts, difficult topics. We also have dolphin lessons, which are geared more towards kids and the young at heart, shorter, a little bit more digestible. And then we also have our podcast, the Dolphin Pod, so you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. And DCP is a nonprofit, so I'm required, I think, to mention ways that you can support DCP. You can become a dolphin protector, which is a way to get an educational kit and a certificate and kind of pledge your support for dolphins. You can become a member, you can buy swag, you can join Kathleen in the field, and just stay in touch. Follow on social media, share posts. You can do the same for other organizations that you follow and value their work. And so I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to put them there. We have a few. So one, are the Rangiroa bottlenose dolphins resident? Are they the same dolphins that come there all the time?
Actually, yes. We are, as I told during the presentation, we are in a very remote location, and Tiputa Channel is the only place in French Polynesia where it's possible to watch bottlenose dolphins daily. We have a small dolphin community residing around the area. Some of these individuals can be seen every day. Other ones maybe once or twice a week. Other ones maybe once or twice a month, but they're all seen regularly. They've all been seen regularly. I mean, the adult ones for more than 10 years now. So we consider that they are all kind of resident on the Tiputa area, yes. And we don't have a lot of individuals, actually. It's really easy to catalog them. We have from one year to another between 25 and 30 different individuals, including most of them actually have been seen for many years. So,
and are they seen year round? And is the scuba diving industry year round, or is any of it seasonal?
Yeah. The scuba diving industry is undertaken year round, and the dolphins. We saw some videos with very resident dolphins, let's say, that are seen every day. Not all very resident dolphins actually are so used to interacting with divers. This is interesting too. We have about 8 to 10 very resident dolphins seen every day, among which today 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are really familiar with scuba divers, and we look for physical contacts with scuba divers. The other ones, they are habituated, but they remain farther. And even we have another female. She's been in the presence of scuba divers for a lot of years, and she's still keeping a large distance between her and scuba divers.
That kind of leads to another question that someone posted. Do you see personally, or were there any references in the literature to increased habituation as through the dolphin generations? Like, so a mom, I think what the person is asking is if the mom then raises a calf in proximity to humans, is that calf more likely to interact with humans?
It's very interesting. We identified two transmission ways of very interactive behaviors of dolphins towards scuba divers. And yes, actually, the first one is from a mother to her calves. We have a female, we sometimes call her the touching Eve. She was the first one to tolerate being touched by scuba divers. It was in 2007. She was immature at this time. After, in 2013, she gave birth to her own live calf, a young female, and she was very tolerant to scuba divers. The scuba divers, they were like touching, handling the calf. She was not telling or behaving like to try to interrupt these interactions. So, and after all her following calves behaved the same, actually. So this is one way of transmission. And we also saw some dolphins that are not part of the same matriline, but they are associates for maybe a short to long time. It depends on individuals. And after sometimes, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, they will also interact very closely with scuba divers. It's a kind of horizontal transmission between associates, let's say. Yeah, we also have this.
Interesting. Thank you. I usually don't say too much personal things on these talks, but I found those videos of the scuba divers handling the calves like shocking. So I guess that's my segue to a question. Did you say that physical contact is actually illegal in Rangiroa?
Yes, it is. It is illegal, but actually the regulations are not so clear, and it's a problem from my viewpoint. The regulations say that it's prohibited to modify protected species behaviors. It doesn't say clearly that it's prohibited to touch, for example, or handle protected species. It's very vague, so it's easy for anyone to interpret the regulations as they wish to and to justify their behaviors as they wish to too. But actually, when you know the story behind these dolphins' behaviors, you understand that these behaviors were actively, modified by scuba divers over time. So it comes into the regulations, but it's not clear enough. And it's so easy, mainly for scuba diving instructors. Unfortunately, they are the main ones giving the wrong example. They are really important in this situation, and they are the main ones to give the wrong example. They won't tell about the regulations, or they will interpret it as they wish to. And if the dolphin is coming to divers, there is also in the regulations an article that says you have to keep a distance of 30 meters between you and dolphins, except if the dolphins are willingly coming close to you. So it's a mess, actually. It's very vague, and local administrations, maybe once a year, they do a kind of reminder. They will publish on social media. Here in Rangiroa also, the municipality, they will give each dive center a reminder to say, hey, oh, what you are doing is prohibited, it's illegal, but there is no enforcement neither. So the instructors, they know that they don't risk anything, and it's really, I'd say, for, I mean, the self-esteem and for the business and for many things, actually, it's really easy to sell dolphin touching activities. So it's difficult for local businesses to change their minds and change their way of behaving with the dolphins. And it's crazy because normally when you are trained to be a scuba divers, to be a scuba diver, sorry, we are trained not to touch anything underwater. But for the
Yeah.
dolphins, I don't know why there is an exception.
Yeah. And then there will be within competitors, no one wants to be the first to stop doing that, you know, to fear losing the business or whatnot. Did any of the papers compare the effectiveness of government regulation versus like industry-led voluntary guidelines?
I don't remember in detail all of the papers actually, but I think there was maybe one, let me think about it, that showed, yes, that local code of conduct were quite effective compared to authorities' laws that were more like a global, you know, and less adapted, and where the local stakeholders were not involved, you know. So I think yes, but I have, if I look in the data, I think I will find something like this. Yes, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all of that information. I think it's easy for people to think that if they are choosing a vacation that involves wildlife, they are automatically choosing something safe and sustainable for the wildlife. So hopefully this will help people be inspired to do a little more homework when they're choosing their tourism, their recreation, and find places and operators that are working in a way that is protecting everyone, especially the species that's being viewed. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you to everyone who listened live. Thank you to everyone who's listening to the recording. And we hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you so much, Pamela.